The shadows of Hadrak 4. The moon Hadrak 4 was dark, cold, and full of danger. It was far from Earth, near the edge of a dying star system. Long ago, it was used for mining. Now it was a place where criminals hid, pirates landed, and mercenaries met in secret. No one from the Galactic Alliance cared about Hadrak 4. It was forgotten. And that's why something very bad was about to happen there. A group of alien warlords had paid a high price to hire the best mercenaries in the galaxy. They wanted to test Earth's strength. To do that, they gave the mercenaries one job: destroy a small human outpost hidden on Hadrak 4. It seemed like an easy task, just a few humans, no real defense. The mercenaries laughed when they took the job. But they didn't know who they were walking into. Sergeant Lena Harrow stood at the edge of a ridge, looking down at the smoking remains of the outpost. She wore black combat armor, built for speed and silence. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp and alert. She wasn't afraid. She was trained for this. Her mission was clear: protect the outpost and find out who sent the attackers. Her team had landed hours before the mercenaries arrived. They moved in silence, hiding in the shadows, watching every move the enemy made. They had no tanks, no big ships, no air support, but what they had was something far more dangerous: experience, discipline, and the kind of training that made Earth's elite soldiers feared across the stars. "Contact ahead," Lena said into her comm, her voice low. 7 targets. Alien types, moving with purpose. They know we're here. She got only static in return. Her comms were jammed. It didn't matter. She knew what to do. The aliens moved through the outpost like they owned it. They were tall, strong, covered in heavy armor. Some had sharp claws, others carried plasma rifles. Their leader, a creature with 4 arms and silver skin, stood at the center, giving quiet orders. He believed this was a simple mission: destroy the humans, collect the reward, and leave. But then his soldiers started to disappear. One by one, they went silent. No sound, no scream, just gone. He turned in circles, confused. "Where are they?" he asked in his language. His answer came too fast. A shadow moved behind him. Then another. Something sharp flashed in the dark. He turned, fired his weapon, but hit nothing. A split second later, one of his guards fell with a hole through his chest. No warning, no mercy. Lena and her team were not using normal tactics. They were hunting, moving fast, hitting hard, then disappearing again. Their goal was not just to win. It was to strike fear. And it worked. The alien mercenaries started to panic. They fired in all directions, shouting at each other, breaking their formation. Fear spread through them like fire. Their high-tech gear meant nothing if they couldn't see the enemy. The leader called for extraction, but their ship in orbit had already left. The pilot had seen the first group go silent and decided to flee. He didn't wait for orders. Meanwhile, Lena moved closer. She signaled her second-in-command with a quick flash of her light. The team moved in together, silent and deadly. In just 6 minutes, the mercenaries were wiped out. As the sun rose above the rocky hills of Hadrak 4, the smoke from the ruined outpost began to fade. Broken weapons lay on the ground. Strange alien blood stained the rocks. The fight was over, but the real war had just begun. Lena walked up to the alien leader, now on his knees. He looked at her with wide, fearful eyes. "Who sent you?" she asked. The alien said nothing. Lena leaned closer. "They'll know we're coming." Then she stood, turned, and disappeared into the mist with her team. High above the moon, in deep space, a coded message was sent from a hidden satellite. It went to every major warlord and mercenary leader in the outer systems. It said only one thing: do not engage Earth's Black Spear unit. The message was ignored by some. They would regret that. For the first time, the galaxy was starting to understand what humans were truly capable of: not because of their numbers or their weapons, but because of the way they fought. Cold, quiet, unstoppable. The mercenaries thought they were the hunters, but they had just met the wolves. Whispers in the dust. The bodies were still warm when Captain Derricks of the Corvini Syndicate arrived on Hadrak 4. His ship hovered above the landing site, its engines humming low like a predator breathing in the dark. Dust rose in slow waves beneath the landing ramp as he stepped onto the barren moon, his long coat flapping in the wind. The sight before him made him pause. 10 of his best mercenaries, dead. No signs of a real firefight. No plasma burns, just clean, silent kills. It felt wrong. Too quiet. Too perfect. Derricks was no fool. He had fought in 3 planetary wars and survived assassination attempts from his own lieutenants. He had seen entire cities wiped out by orbital strikes. But this was different. It looked like an execution, not a battle. And that scared him. He walked among the fallen, checking the bodies. Their weapons had not been fired. Their armor wasn't even scratched in most places. One of the mercs had his throat cut with something so sharp it barely left a mark. Another had his spine broken clean through the back. There were no human footprints, only drag marks, like someone had moved with speed and precision. His second in command, a short creature with green skin and long fingers, spoke quietly. They didn't stand a chance. This was a message. Derricks nodded slowly. They wanted us to see this. Above them, the sun was rising again, pale and thin. The shadows of Hadrak 4 stretched long across the jagged rocks. Every instinct in Derricks's body screamed at him to leave. But pride is a dangerous thing, especially in the outer systems. He activated his wrist terminal and sent a wide-range encrypted signal. This is Captain Derricks. Black Spear Unit confirmed on Hadrak 4. Requesting backup, no less than 4 squads. Prepare for war. Meanwhile, deep inside the old mining tunnels beneath the surface, Sergeant Lena Harrow moved through the dark, like part of it. Her helmet lights stayed off. Her team used old methods, maps, hand signs, timed movement. Technology could be hacked. Instincts couldn't. They had relocated after the ambush. The higher command back on Earth wanted information, not just bodies. Someone had sent those mercs, and Lena was going to find out who. Her squad was small, just 6 people, but each one was trained to handle full squads alone if needed. The galaxy called them Black Spear, Earth called them Ghosts. As they moved deeper underground, Private Reno, the youngest of the squad, whispered, "You think they'll send more?" Lena gave a short nod. "They always send more." Reno didn't ask again. They reached an old control center, left behind when the miners abandoned Hadrak 4. Rusted panels lined the walls. Dust floated in the air like fog. Lena crouched near a broken terminal, hooked up a signal scrambler, and activated a shortwave transmitter. A low beep confirmed the signal went through. Shadow Team to Echo Command. Phase 1 complete. Hostile squad neutralized. Preparing for Phase 2. The reply came fast. Echo Command to Shadow Team. Intel confirms multiple factions have received the warning, but they aren't backing off. Expect heavy response. Your new objective is information gathering. Find out who's organizing this and extract if possible. Lena sighed. This wasn't just about a hit squad anymore. Someone wanted to test Earth's limits. They were poking the bear. She looked at her team. Tired eyes behind battle helmets. Blood on their armor. But not one of them had backed down. "We hold position here," she said. "If they want to come back, let them." Hours passed. The team set traps through the tunnels. They checked lines of sight, adjusted cover positions, and studied the walls for weak spots. They knew the mercs would come again. But this time, Lena didn't want to disappear like a ghost. She wanted someone alive. Someone to talk. Above, in orbit, Derricks's reinforcements arrived. 4 ships, sleek and black, with enough firepower to wipe out a colony. They dropped pods fast and hard, filling the ground with alien troops. Different species, different skills, all paid well to do one thing: kill. As they spread through the tunnels, something strange happened. No resistance, no gunfire, just silence. Some began to wonder if the humans had left. Maybe the bodies outside were all that remained. Then the first trap went off. A concussive blast sealed one entrance. 3 mercs vanished into smoke. The next group was taken out by tripwires, set with nerve charges that only responded to alien heat signatures. Panic set in fast. They weren't fighting soldiers. They were walking into a maze built by predators. In the command tunnel, Lena watched them on infrared, tracking movement through the old vents and rock. They didn't even realize they were being funneled, pushed toward one small chamber where her team was waiting. She tapped her knife against her helmet twice. A silent signal. Get ready. As the first of the enemy entered, confused and afraid, Lena smiled behind her visor. They had come hunting, but they didn't know they were already prey. The Chamber of Ghosts. The first scream didn't last more than half a second. It echoed through the stone tunnels like a whisper caught in a storm, then faded into silence. The mercenary who screamed never saw what hit him. One moment he was stepping carefully into a wide chamber, his scanner showing nothing but cold rock and metal dust. The next, he was gone, yanked into the shadows, his rifle clattering to the ground. The other mercenaries froze. 6 of them, heavily armed, armor glowing with shield tech. Their eyes scanned every wall, every shadow, but the room felt like it was breathing. Hot air against the neck. Too quiet. Wrong. Hold formation, the squad leader hissed, his voice clicking in his throat. He was a reptilian species called the Thessar, known for their calm in battle. But even his hand trembled slightly now. They are trying to scare us. He was wrong. It wasn't fear tactics. It was a kill zone. In a small crack near the ceiling, Private Reno watched them through his scope, his breath steady. He waited until the second group moved past a pressure plate, then triggered the trap. From above, metal rods dropped like spears. 3 mercs went down before they even realized what hit them. The others fired blindly, blue plasma lighting the room. Then came the sound that none of them expected. Footsteps. Fast, coming from every direction. One merc turned, raised his rifle, but his arm was knocked aside. A blade slipped between his armor plates, silent and precise. Sergeant Lena Harrow stepped through the chaos like a shadow come alive. She moved low, struck once, then vanished again behind a stone pillar. Her team followed the pattern. Hit, disappear, hit again. The mercenaries were trained for war, but not this kind. They were used to numbers, to loud fights with clear lines. This was something else. It was like fighting ghosts. When it was over, the last merc stood in the middle of the chamber, alone, breathing hard, blood dripping down his leg. He dropped his weapon and raised his hands. "I surrender," he said, his translator cracking. "Please, don't vanish again." Lena stepped into view, gun aimed at his chest. Her voice was calm. "You're going to talk." He nodded quickly. "Yes. Anything. Just don't disappear again." They tied him up, ran a deep scan to make sure he wasn't wired with explosives or trackers, then brought him back to the control room. It smelled like dust and metal. The only light came from the soft blue glow of old mining monitors. Lena crouched beside him. "Who sent you?" The merc hesitated. "We got the job through a blind broker. Credits dropped in 3 locations. Usual stuff. But the name passed through our orders." I heard it once. She waited. "Velcor. A warlord. Not just any warlord. He's different." Lena frowned. She had heard that name before, back in the deep files of Earth's threat board. Velcor was a ghost himself, a former Alliance strategist who disappeared years ago. He had knowledge of human tactics, dangerous knowledge. "Why now?" she asked. Why start something on a dead moon? The merc shook his head. He's testing you. He wants to see if the old stories are true. About the Black Spear. About Earth's elite. Lena stood slowly. Her eyes were cold behind the visor. They're true. Back in orbit, Captain Derricks sat inside his warship, staring at the incoming report. Lost contact with second team. Lost contact with scout units. Minimal resistance observed. No return fire. Then, total blackout. He slammed his fist against the console. They're bleeding us out, he growled. His comms officer looked nervous. Should we pull back? Derricks didn't answer right away. He stared at the rotating map of Hadrak 4. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a lesson. A warning. And he was losing men with every hour. But leaving meant showing weakness. And in the outer systems, weakness was a death sentence. No, he said finally. We bring in the enforcers. Below, Lena was already preparing for what came next. She knew reinforcements were coming. Bigger, meaner, smarter. This warlord, Velkor, was watching everything, and she wasn't about to give him a clean win. We move in 30, she told her team. We take the prisoner to Site Echo. We make noise. We let them follow us. Private Reno looked surprised. You want them to follow? Lena checked her weapon. Yes, they want to fight. We give them one. But on our ground. The team packed quickly, moving through secret tunnels that hadn't been mapped in decades. Above them, dropships began to fall from the sky again. More soldiers, more weapons. But they still didn't understand. This wasn't just a battle. This was a message written in blood and silence. The Black Spear didn't fight wars. They ended them. Blood trail to Echo Site. The dust hadn't settled over Hadrak 4 when the next wave of enemy soldiers hit the ground. They came in armored drop pods that smashed through rock and metal alike, shaking the tunnels below with each landing. These weren't standard mercenaries. These were enforcers, the kind that never spoke, never questioned orders, and didn't stop until either they or their target was dead. They were machines in flesh, picked from different species, trained in the art of fear. And now they were hunting humans. Captain Derricks watched from his command post high in orbit. His face was blank, but his eyes twitched with tension. He had expected some resistance, a few traps, maybe a firefight or two. But this was different. His best teams hadn't even touched the human strike unit. They had walked into shadows and never walked out. And now, even the enforcers were late checking in. He lit a communication line to the warlord Velkor. The signal took a moment to reach across systems, but eventually, a dark screen flickered to life. A pair of glowing eyes stared back at him. Status. Velkor's voice was deep and steady, emotionless. Derricks hesitated. Contact has been difficult. Their team moves like ghosts. Their traps are everywhere. We haven't found a pattern yet. Velkor said nothing. The silence dragged on long enough that Derricks felt a cold sweat forming along his neck. You said they were elite, Derricks added, trying to defend himself. But you didn't say they were impossible. They're not impossible, Velkor said. They're human. That's worse. They adapt. Then the signal cut out. On the surface of Hadrak 4, the Black Spear team was already miles ahead, weaving through tunnels that hadn't seen light in years. The air was thick with dust and the faint smell of old fuel. Pipes ran along the walls, many broken and hissing steam. They moved fast but quiet, like wolves leading their prey into a trap. The captured mercenary limped behind them, hands bound, eyes wide. He kept glancing at the shadows, expecting to see more of his kind fall from the dark. He had fought in pirate wars and border skirmishes, but he had never felt like this. It wasn't just fear. It was the deep, creeping knowledge that he was completely outmatched. Site Echo was hidden under a collapsed mine shaft. Most thought it was destroyed during a tectonic shift years ago, but Earth had rebuilt it, quietly, using it as a fallback point for special operations. Only Black Spear units had access. It was small, well hidden, and deadly when needed. As they approached the outer gate, Private Reno tapped his comm. Motion behind us. Multiple targets. Moving fast. How many? Lena asked. Reno checked his scanner. Too many. Lena didn't flinch. Good. Let them come. They entered Site Echo, sealing the gate behind them. The base came alive as power surged through hidden systems. Dim lights flickered on, revealing narrow hallways lined with gun ports and reinforced doors. Automated turrets unfolded from the ceiling, tracking anything that didn't wear Earth's signature. They placed the prisoner in a secure room, guarded by 2 turrets and one very bored-looking corporal named Nash, who had stayed behind due to a leg injury. If he breathes wrong, shoot him, Lena said. Nash grinned. If he sneezes, it's over. Outside, the enforcers reached the surface above Site Echo. They moved in perfect silence, no spoken words, only signals. They scanned for traps, checked for mines, and began to dig. But Lena was already watching them on her screens. Every movement was recorded. She watched as they cut through rock, ignoring the obvious entrances, trying to surprise them. They think we're cornered, Reno said. Lena leaned forward, studying their formations. They're not here to win. They're here to measure. Measure what? She looked at him. Us. For the first time, Reno understood the bigger game. This wasn't just about Hadrak 4. Velcor wasn't sending these teams to destroy Black Spear. He was watching, testing, learning how Earth's best soldiers fought, so he could plan something bigger. But Lena had her own plan. Seal off Corridor 9, she said. Reroute Heath signatures to Tunnel 6 and 7. We give them a path. One we control. A fake weakness? Reno asked. No, Lena said. A trap dressed like one. As the enforcers breached the outer tunnels, they found what looked like a weak spot. An old storage bay, half collapsed, with no defenses. They'd moved in fast, weapons ready, scanning every corner. What they didn't know was that the entire room had been rigged with sound dampeners and high-frequency stun mines. Once inside, the pressure plates under their boots did the rest. A flash, then silence. 20 seconds later, Lena and her team walked into the smoke, gas masks on, weapons raised. It wasn't a firefight. It was an execution. Only one enforcer remained conscious, barely. His mask cracked, blood running down his jaw. Lena stood over him. Tell Velcor, she said. We see him too. Then she pulled the trigger. Velcor's eyes. Deep within the void between systems, aboard a black ship without a name, Velcor stood alone in his chamber, watching the events on Hadrak 4 unfold in silence. The walls around him pulsed with a dim red glow, each light sensed to the life signals of his soldiers. One by one, those lights had gone dark. He did not speak. He did not rage. He simply observed, recording every movement, every tactic the humans had used, every ghost-like maneuver of Earth's Black Spear unit. It was not a failure in his eyes. It was data. He had known the moment he chose them as targets that they would not fall easily. The stories about them were not myths. Earth's elite soldiers were real. They moved like predators, they fought like machines, and they understood something that most species had forgotten: how to turn the battlefield into a weapon. Velcor's body was tall and lean, covered in obsidian armor fused to his flesh. No one alive knew where he came from. Some said he had once served in the Galactic Alliance, others believed he was the product of something far older. What mattered now was that he had seen the pattern. Everywhere humans went in the outer systems, they were underestimated, dismissed as soft, slow to reach the stars. But when pushed into a corner, they didn't surrender. They evolved. He turned from the screen and approached the center of the room, where a long table displayed a rotating projection of Hadrak 4. The signal from his enforcers was gone. No survivors. No recovered tech. Not even a corpse. He admired the elegance of the human silence. No broadcasts, no claims. They didn't want credit. They wanted confusion. "Ready the mirror team," he said, his voice low and sharp. A mechanical voice replied from the dark corner of the chamber. "The clones are unstable. Field use is risky." "Send them anyway," Velcor said. "This isn't about victory. It's about understanding." On Hadrak 4, Site Echo was quiet now. The traps were reset. The halls were cleaned. Lena sat alone in the command room, staring at the old display screen. She hadn't slept in 30 hours. None of them had. The rest of her team was doing repairs, checking supplies, rearming the turrets. The captured mercenary still sat in a locked cell, though now he hardly spoke. The fear had changed him. Whatever pride he had left had been burned out in the tunnels. Private Reno entered the room carrying 2 cups of synthcaf. He handed one to Lena and sat across from her. "You think they're done?" he asked. Lena shook her head. "No, that last wave. They weren't meant to win. They were meant to record." Reno frowned. "They were testing us. They were watching," she said. "We gave them a show." Outside, a small vibration hummed through the ground. It was faint, distant. Most wouldn't have noticed it. Lena stood up fast. Motion sensors. Reno checked the screen. Nothing on radar. No drop pods. No heat signatures. Lena grabbed her helmet. "Check seismic lines. Look for underground activity." A moment passed. Then the screen lit up, faint tremors, low-level energy pulses just outside the perimeter. Something was burrowing. They reached the perimeter wall in minutes, weapons ready. The earth had cracked in a spiral, like a drill had carved upward. But there was no machine. Only figures, human-shaped. 6 of them. They stepped into view slowly, their movements unnatural. Too smooth, too perfect. Reno's hand twitched on his rifle. "They look like us." Lena narrowed her eyes behind her visor. "No, they're not us." The figures wore armor that mirrored black spear gear almost perfectly. Their stances, their weapons, even the way they held formation. It was all familiar. But the eyes behind the visors were blank. They didn't speak, didn't gesture. They just advanced. "Clones?" Reno asked. "Maybe," Lena whispered, "or something worse." Before they could act, one of the mirror soldiers broke formation and charge. Lena fired first. Center mass, clean shot. It dropped instantly, but then it stood up again. Bones cracked back into place. It kept walking. "Shoot the heads," Lena shouted. Her team poured fire into the mirrors. 2 dropped, stayed down. The others moved with machine-like calm, dodging bullets, returning fire with exact precision. It was like fighting themselves, but without hesitation, without fear. "Fall back to inner corridor," Lena ordered. "Force them into the choke point." They moved fast, retreating deeper into Site Echo. Turrets activated behind them, locking onto the clones. 2 more fell. One reached the door before it closed. It slammed into the metal, cracking it slightly. It didn't scream, didn't react, just stared through the glass like it was studying them. Lena stood inches away on the other side of the door, breathing hard. "They're copying us," Reno said. "Everything we do, they learn." Lena nodded, "And every second we survive, they get better." She activated a deep scramble signal, sending an encrypted message back to Earth Command. "This is Shadow 1. Enemy has deployed Mimic-class units. Possible cloning or simulation tech. Threat is adaptive. Request clearance for protocol Burnlight." There was silence. Then a response. "Burnlight approved. Godspeed, Shadow Team." Lena turned to Reno. "Pack everything. We're not defending this site anymore. We're abandoning it." "No," she said. "We're going to bury it. If they want a war, we'll give them something to remember." Protocol Burnlight. The tunnels of Site Echo were alive with movement, but not the kind that could be seen on radar. Lena moved with purpose, her boots silent against the steel floor, issuing quick commands to her team. Her voice was steady, but her mind raced. Protocol Burnlight wasn't just a fallback. It was a last measure, the kind of order that came down when command accepted that survival was less important than silence. If enemy forces couldn't be stopped, they had to be denied the one thing they came for: data. As Private Reno hauled explosive packs into the tunnel's spine, he glanced back at Lena. "We're really gonna blow the whole place." Lena didn't look up. She was wiring a remote detonator into the main power node. "We don't have a choice. Those things out there, they're not just fighters. They're collectors." "But what are they collecting?" he asked. "Us," she said. Lena didn't need to explain further. The mirror soldiers, those pale reflections of the Black Spear team, weren't just mimicking tactics. They were learning behaviors, reactions, choices under pressure. Every shot fired, every route taken. It was all going into some system. And Velcor was building a playbook. Elsewhere in the base, Corporal Nash had taken the prisoner out of the cell. He dragged him along roughly, pushing him through the maintenance shaft toward the evac point. The mercenary no longer resisted. He had seen too much, heard too much. His loyalty to his contract had burned away under the cold stare of the clone soldiers. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Somewhere that's not here," Nash muttered. Above ground, the mirror team was reforming. 2 had been destroyed in the last encounter, but 4 remained. And they were changing. Already their movements had adjusted, more fluid, more strategic. They no longer walked into obvious kill zones. They split up, flanked, drew fire, then retreated with perfect coordination. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. And they didn't stop. Inside Site Echo's command center, Lena entered the final activation code for Burnlight. The system whirred to life, releasing decades-old subroutines built into the facility's core. Automated voices whispered warnings through the halls. Deep beneath the surface, the backup fusion reactor hummed louder, cycling to overload. Reno stood beside her, eyes wide as he looked at the display. "How big is this gonna be?" Lena exhaled. "Big enough that nothing recognizable will be left. And us." She looked at him. "We're not dying here." Together, they headed to the evac shaft, an old mining elevator barely functional, covered in rust and dust. Nash and the prisoner were already inside, packed in with gear and black cases marked with Earth's deep code. Inside those cases were drives, data cubes, battlefield logs, everything the Black Spear team had recorded since touching down on Hadrak 4. The kind of intel Earth Command couldn't afford to let fall into enemy hands. As the elevator rumbled upward, the ground began to tremble. The reactor countdown had begun. But the enemy had one last card to play. From the far end of the shaft, another mirror unit emerged. This one larger, its armor darker than the rest. It moved faster, more precise, and it didn't come alone. 3 smaller units followed it, and behind them, a drone that hovered silently, recording. "It's the command unit," Lena said, eyes narrowing. "They've consolidated what they've learned." She stepped forward, rifle raised. Reno followed without a word. "Buy time," Lena said. "Make it count." They opened fire as the elevator rose behind them. Plasma rounds scorched the air, striking armor, shattering metal, but the command unit didn't fall. It ducked and returned fire with perfect accuracy, striking cover spots, grazing armor. It was like fighting someone who already knew what they would do next. Reno went down first, hit in the side, spinning to the ground with a grunt. Lena slid beside him, dragged him behind a broken crate, and pressed a med shot into his leg. "You stay with me," she snapped. "You're getting soft," he groaned. Lena smiled faintly. "Don't get used to it." Then she rose and faced the command mirror alone. It stared at her, emotionless, weapon humming in its hands. "You're not us," she said. "You don't understand why we fight." She fired first, a clean shot to the neck joint. The mirror staggered. She closed the distance, slammed into it, blade in hand. The two locked in a brutal hand-to-hand fight, metal crashing against metal, sparks flying. She didn't fight like a soldier. She fought like a human. Imperfect, wild, unpredictable. And that's what saved her. She struck hard under the arm joint, found a weakness. The command unit collapsed, spasming, twitching, then went still. Lena turned, blood dripping from her lip, and saw the elevator rise above the ridge. She limped after it, grabbed Reno, and together they climbed into the shaft. Below them, the fusion core passed its final cycle. As the platform rose through stone and dust, Lena keyed the detonator. The entire site lit up beneath them in a silent flash of white. A second later, the ground exploded. Fire, rock, and steel tore upward into the sky. Everything below, clones, tech, data, base, was erased. And in the distance, aboard his hidden ship, Velcor watched the explosion from his long-range satellite. He leaned back in his chair, silent. Then he smiled. Not because he had won, but because now he knew. They could bleed. And next time, he would be ready. The wolves returned home. The crater where Site Echo once stood was still burning when Earth Command received confirmation. Burnlight had succeeded. There was nothing left. No enemy tech, no trace of the facility, not even dust that could be analyzed. The Black Spear team had vanished from sensors for nearly 40 hours. Most assumed them lost. Then, a signal blinked on an encrypted channel known only to Earth's highest tactical division. A single word: alive. A week later, in the shadow of a hidden moon station orbiting Jupiter, a dropship docked quietly. No fanfare, no medals, just silence. The kind of silence that followed those who had seen too much, done too much, and made sure no one ever had to know how close they came to the edge. Sergeant Lena Harrow walked off the ramp first, her black armor scorched and scarred, helmet under her arm. She looked tired, not the kind of tired that came from lack of sleep, but the kind that sank into your bones. Private Reno limped behind her, a fresh scar along his jaw, but his grin had returned. Nash followed, chewing on something synthetic and tasteless. The mercenary prisoner, now cleaned up and bound in a full containment suit, was escorted off by intel agents. He didn't resist. Not anymore. Inside the debriefing room, Lena stood in front of 3 generals and a panel of analysts. Behind them, holoscreens showed fragments of burned tunnels, shredded clone tech, and satellite footage of the crater. None of them spoke right away. Finally, one of the generals leaned forward. "Did you confirm identity of the opposing force?" Lena nodded. Yes, multiple mercenary syndicates, but all pointing back to one source. Velcor. "Confirmed," she said. "And he's not done." The clones weren't just combat tests. They were memory vessels. They were recording. How much did he get? Enough to be dangerous, Lena said, but not enough to win. The room fell quiet again. Then another voice, older, colder. "We've dealt with warlords before. What makes this one different?" Lena looked them dead in the eyes. "Because he's not trying to conquer planets. He's trying to understand us. Not our weapons. Us." And that was the truth. On Hadrak 4, Velcor hadn't launched a campaign for territory. He had orchestrated a scenario, built a simulation, and thrown lives into it to watch how Earth's elite responded. He didn't care how many he lost. The battle was never about victory. It was about learning. And now he knew what kind of monster Earth could send when provoked. Later, as the team sat in the station's mess hall, Reno tapped his fork against the tray. "So what now? We wait for him to show up again." Lena didn't answer right away. She stared at the stars beyond the glass. Endless black, endless silence. "We prepare," she said at last. "We heal, we train, and next time, we hit first." Nash snorted. "You think Command will let us?" Lena looked at him. "They don't have a choice." Because the truth was, Black Spear wasn't just a team. It was an idea. A living weapon forged from fear, sharpened by history, and aimed at anyone foolish enough to test humanity's edge. While the rest of the galaxy played games of politics and power, Earth had quietly built something more dangerous than fleets and alliances. They built soldiers who didn't need orders to protect home. They built wolves. Far across the stars, in the heart of a broken world, Velcor stood in a chamber filled with still figures, his mirrors. The clones of Black Spear stood frozen, awaiting orders. The data pulled from Hadrak 4 played back in thousands of streams. Every heartbeat, every gunshot, every hesitation, every rage-filled charge. He watched Lena fight, watched her bleed, watched her make the decision to destroy her own base rather than give him what he wanted. And he admired it. He turned to his engineers. How soon can we begin the second stage? The lead engineer hesitated. The clone designs are reaching instability. Repeated modeling of human unpredictability is causing algorithm breakdowns. Velcor stepped closer, voice sharp, then stopped trying to copy them. The room went quiet. Create something new, he said. Not a weapon that mimics humans, a weapon that kills them. They nodded. Back on the moon station, Lena stood in the cold hangar bay alone. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a shard of mirror armor, burnt, cracked, but still humming faintly. She turned it over in her palm. The enemy hadn't just tried to kill her. They tried to become her, and failed. But next time, they might not. She placed the shard in a box, sealed it, and marked it. Return to R&D, Priority 1. Reno appeared behind her. So, we're going back out. Lena smiled faintly. Eventually. And if Velcor shows up again. She turned, her voice low, steady. Then we stop being ghosts. And become what? Lena stepped past him, her voice trailing behind. The nightmare. And somewhere, in the dark between stars, Velcor smiled again. Because he knew. The real war hadn't even started yet.